creator of Sunseed The Journey and today's host, Amrita Cohen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sunseed Wisdom Talks. I'm Amrita Cohen, director of the movie Sunseed The Journey. This is number 10 in our interactive series discussing with key thought leaders of today representing many different religious and spiritual and philosophical points of view. And today, we have a special treat for you. Before we begin, I just wanted to remind our audience that you can see all of the previous Wisdom Talks and also order the new classic movie, new age movie, Sunseed The Journey by visiting our website, www.sunseed.org. These Wisdom Talks are free, but we do encourage you, if you're able to contribute anything that you can to help us continue these great talks we're having with other people. You can go down below. You'll see a button down there to donate. Or if you're watching it on some other platform like YouTube, you can go to our website, sunseed.org/wisdom talks, to keep these important conversations going like these. Today, our guest is someone I met via a workshop that I was taking myself. She did a workshop for 11 months that I participated in based on her fabulous book, Creating a Life of Integrity. I was a student, and it was so changing for me and important for me that I invited her to come on here to share her ideas and the whole concept with all of our audience today. Gail Anderson Stark, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. Thank you.
Of course. Gail's not only an author, but she's also an extremely successful real estate broker, very well known in the San Francisco Bay Area. She's been studying Buddhism for over 30 years, and she herself is a student and a good friend of the renowned teacher Joseph Goldstein. The book is a collaboration between Joseph and Gail, and it describes their process that they went through for 10 months studying the precepts of Buddha. Gail, before we start, will you lead us in a short meditation to help us settle down just like you did before in every one of the classes and the workshop?
Of course I would. I need it for myself as well.
Just one moment before you start, I want to remind our audience, be sure you stay with us until the very end, because you'll have a chance to ask some of your questions about the precepts of Buddha or ways that you can further your own search. And then at the end, Gail will give us another beautiful meditation. So be sure you stay to the end. Gail, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So it's going to be a very short 5 minutes at the most meditation. And the purpose of it is to just get here. So if you would close your eyes, if that's comfortable, make an adjustment or two in your seat so you feel comfortable, your body. You're aware that you have a body. Take a deep breath. Another. With each breath, feel if you can follow it down a little deeper, a little longer. Good. Now notice the top of your head. Can you feel the top of your head? Can you just feel it relaxing? As if some glue were coming down the sides of your head, from the top of your head, and just going softly down. Feel the energy in your eyes following. Closed, but now more closed, softer. Some relief there. Feel it coming down your face as it relaxes slowly with each breath. Even your ears, no hearing, lightly resting. And the mind, it too, slowing. Nothing to really do here. Relax. Breathe. Drop. Now you feel your neck and into your shoulders. Move those shoulders a little and then let them just slowly fall into a place of relaxation. So much can get hung up in those shoulders. They work hard for us. Follow down the arms now to the shoulders, down to all the way to the fingers. The fingers, hard workers. Just lying softly in your lap. Nothing to do. Nowhere to go. And beneath the shoulders, that back, that strong, sturdy back that carries us. It's already softening. You can feel it. Softening, dropping. Getting longer. And now to your seat. Feel yourself sitting in your chair, your cushion. Feel the relaxation there. Nowhere to go, move, run. Just there, just present, just breathing. And the legs. They know when we sit, they can relax. And they're already doing it. You can feel it. The knees, the ankles, the toes. Nowhere to go. So now just take a few moments yourself in the silence. Slowly move through the body. Feel the relaxation. Feel the mind letting go, along with the body and the heart. Just be present for it and still. All right. Slowly, we come back. Feel your eyes slowly opening. Looking around, reconnecting with the surroundings. Hopefully that relaxed you as much as it did me. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Gail.
Mhm.
Before we get into the book and the study, I've always been curious what was your upbringing in terms of spiritual or religious background, and then how did you get to Buddhism from whatever your parents taught you?
Well, those are two good questions, actually. The answer to the first is I was raised in a spiritual family. My mother was raised in Unity, which is a modern religion, which is actually borrowed heavily from Buddhism. And so it was not such of a great slide into Buddhism from Unity. My mother used to say, if I was complaining about something, she'd say, well, don't blame me. You chose me. Meaning we did believe in reincarnation. So it was a very open, free religion to be raised with. And to answer your second question, what happened was 30 years ago, I was just starting to date my now husband, Ron. And he set up a ski trip where we were going to go with a few friends. And he was going to pick Joseph Goldstein, who he knew, up at the airport, and then pick me up. And the three of us would drive up to Lake Tahoe here in California and ski for a few days with some other friends that were up there. And so I knew enough about Joseph Goldstein to know that he was a famous Buddhist teacher at that time. And I was kind of, worried about how that was going to be and if he was going to be really serious to hang out with on the snow. And also what I would do. I didn't know anything about Buddhism. So we got in the car and we're driving up to Lake Tahoe, and very quickly, my husband, boyfriend, Ron, and Joseph were in the front seat. I was in the back seat being quiet, and they were going back and forth and laughing, and just joking and all. And I'm thinking, wow, this guy's okay. He's fun. I'm kind of liking him. He's not, coming on with, teaching. So by the time we were getting up into the mountains, we were all having a really nice, light, fun conversation. Meanwhile, it started snowing and snowing and snowing, and more heavily. And they had a sign saying you have to have snow tires. And we had a rented truck to take the three of us up there with ski gear. And but we didn't have snow tires. We had snow tires, but not snow chains. And that's what the signs were saying, snow chains. So we pulled over into a little, side store, local store, to see if we had to get the chains. And behind us, a cop all of a sudden followed us off of the freeway and to the parking lot. And we're like, oh no, this is it. We're in trouble. But actually he was going to put gas in his car. So Ron decided he would go talk to the policeman about whether we needed to buy chains. And Joseph and I were directed to go into the store and find out about chains and what the price of them was, et cetera, et cetera. So we go in the store. And I'm still nervous about being with this famous person. And so we walk in the store, and Joseph goes, coffee. He says, you want some coffee? And I'm like, sure. So we go over to this little coffee machine and we're laughing. We're, making coffees for ourselves. And then he looks around, he goes, cookies? Do you like cookies? And I go, yes, I love cookies. And so we go over to the cookie place and we're this box of cookies, and we discover we're both really love cookies. And so we're, cookies. And so we have like 3 boxes and our coffees. And then he goes, oh, how about a sandwich before the cookies? And about then I'm thinking, we're supposed to be looking into the chains, and Joseph stood up from the cookies, looking at the cookies, and he started laughing, and he said, just wanting mind at work, just wanting mind. And we go looking for the chains, and I'm like, wanting mind? What's he said? Well, I'm not my mind. This mind is a wanting is not me. I'm not. And that was it. I thought, whatever he's talking about, I don't understand, but I want to know more. He was so light and free and totally embracing of how he was feeling in this moment and that moment. And it was so unlike what was running through my head. Oh my gosh, Ron's going to be unhappy. We haven't even looked at it. So that was it for me. And I signed up at the end of our retreat. He had come to teach a retreat. And at the end of our time in the mountains, I signed up for a 7-day silent meditation. 10-day silent meditation retreat with Joseph,
Just like that, right?
And I never looked back. I've done it 30 years in a row. I've attended his retreat every year for 30 years.
So why did you write a book on integrity? And what is a life of integrity? What does that mean, really?
I wanted to read a little bit from it, but that is a very interesting question. So I'll answer it first and then read what I was going to say, because again, it was kind of a unrehearsed situation. I had reached out to Joseph when I was having some difficulties. I was just feeling out of sorts, and nothing really was fun that used to be fun. And I was, I was really troubled. Real estate was having a tough time, and so I had stepped aside. I had finished a big project, stepped aside, and thought, okay, I just need to sort myself out here. I just not the jolly person I usually am. And so I asked Joseph, I was kind of shy about it. And I said, could we maybe meet once a month and talk? And, I said, I'm not saying a therapist, but, maybe we could, I could tell you what's going on and you could help me get out of this funk. And he said, yes. And so we made a time to talk, and we talked. And he gave me instructions he says, we're going to work every month with the paramis, the 10 paramis. And they are they are all about, integrity. And I'm thinking, integrity? Oh, he thinks I don't. I'm not living with integrity. But I said, okay, I'll do it. So he gave me some instructions. And after the month, I came back and I reported to him on how it went working with his instructions. And we were both laughing. And I was sharing stories about what it was like to have worked with this first parami that I'll describe in a minute. And he was telling his stories. And at the end, we looked at each other. We were doing this online. We looked at each other and he says, this has got to be a book. And so I said, okay, I'll write it. And so we started then taping the sessions that we had every month for 10 months. And that's how the book was created. And I did get brave enough a little the next month to ask him if he thought I needed work on my integrity. And he laughed and he said no. But he said this teaching, the paramis, the 10 paramis, it's all designed for taking it into your daily life. something to really work with in your daily life. And it was exactly what I needed. So, and I've been loving teaching around it and seeing what happens as people get turned on to it and read it and start working with it in their lives, as you can well speak to.
What I love especially is the fact, and you bring this up very clearly in the introduction in your book, is that these are principles of how to live a good life and maybe actually becoming an awakened being, but they're totally in life. Sometimes most people think about mindfulness meditation, or mindfulness even, or Buddhism as being something you're a monk and you're separated from life, but you are able to bring these into life. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about what are these 10 principles. And I mean, we could spend an hour on any one of them, but just briefly, and then maybe we'll go into depth in a couple of them.
Yes, that would be great. And I just want to say that in answer to what you started, is such a good point, and you know it personally from working with them yourself, is that I've known so many friends over the 30 years who, they get all inspired by my talking about going on retreats, and they go to one and they never go to another one. And so this is it's it's all pointing the same direction. But it is about exactly working with these principles in your daily life. And so you have instructions for each of them, and the instructions are what you take into your daily life. You keep checking in with them during the day, and that's the real magic of it. And the way that people can start to see a progression in their lives and in the work that they're doing as a result of. And this is 2,600-year-old teachings. So had a lot of time to to be tested, shall we say. So did you want want me to read a couple things now?
Yeah, sure. That'd be great. And by the way, we just saw on the screen, you can get this book, Creating a Life of Integrity. It's by going to Gail's website, or it's also available on Amazon. But I really will be talking about it a lot. But it's like a guidebook.
Thank you. So I thought that because this was really, although I wrote the book, Joseph is throughout the book, of course. He's our leader. And so I wanted to just give you a little bit from the very first page in the book, to give you just a sense of how it goes.
Great.
So I'm going to start with a quote by Joseph that opens the book. At different times in our lives and meditation practice, we may get glimpses of something beyond our ordinary conventional reality, touching a space that transforms our vision of who we are and what the world is. These intimations give passionate meaning to questions of ultimate truth. Because although we may not always be living in that space, we understand it to be the source of everything we value. And that just says it. That's integrity. We understand it to be the source of everything we value. So I say many books have been written about happiness lately, good books, not so many on integrity. Perhaps this is because the whole notion sounds, dull, right? Also prone to failure. We stumble here frequently, and yet integrity is a crucial and often overlooked ingredient in the happiness mix. Like yeast in bread making, living with integrity lifts our spirits. When we do or say the right thing, we know it. We feel touched. We feel better about ourselves. The happiness from that effort is threefold. We're happy when we act on an ethical impulse that we have. We're happy to witness the results of that good intention. And we're happy again remembering the act and its results. So those are a lot of good feelings we may be overlooking in our mad rush to stake out a place of solid happiness in the shifting sands of life.
Lovely.
Buddhists call the pleasure that arises from one's ethical conduct the bliss of blamelessness. It's my favorite 3 words. Enticing, after many years devoted to improving my own integrity, I can now confirm the authenticity of those words. Strengthening my integrity has profoundly altered the trajectory of my life and bathing it in this rich contentment. Surprisingly, I discovered contentment was really precisely the component of happiness that I had been seeking. So that's the bliss of blamelessness.
So what would you say? Can you because most people probably listening don't really know what these 10 principles are, and of course one word doesn't cover it, but I think maybe you could just go through
Yes.
what words are so people have some idea of the breadth of this incredible self-study.
Yes, good. I have that ready with the other piece. Whoops. Again, starting with a quote at the first chapter, Joseph says, morality brings us the peace of non-remorse. So that's the peace we're really speaking about. And you discover is profoundly deep and profoundly gratifying as you discover that this source of happiness that we don't think of every day. So here it is, the 10 components of integrity. How do we get there? In Buddhist technology, the 10 components of integrity are referred to as the paramis. It is taught that these 10 qualities of mind and heart, when perfected, can result in liberation from our suffering. Liberation from our suffering. Practicing them, strengthening them, slowly purifies the mind and the heart. They are the path for crafting a life of integrity. And as promised, they are our path to the bliss of blamelessness. Here are my own definitions for the 10 paramis. The first one is generosity, responding to the world from a sense of abundance, sharing freely of one's resources in gifts, actions, and words. Gifts, actions, and words in generosity, right? There's 3 ways that we can be generous. And it's the first parami because it's the easiest for all of us to understand, undertake, start doing. We've all been generous. We all know how we feel when we've been generous. So it's a lovely way to start. The paramis are built on the idea I call of a ladder. So each of them, you start with the beginning one, again, generosity, so easy, so fun, so uplifting. And you go deeper and deeper up. And each, with the knowledge that you take from each of the paramis, they start to get more subtle and also more difficult. But you've got the basis as you move up to enlightenment and the bliss of blamelessness by doing them one by one as this program is. So number 2 is virtue. Honoring the preciousness of all life through a steadfast commitment to not harming ourselves or others. That seems pretty understandable as one of the 10 and also what's involved. Number 3, the third, is renunciation. One of my least favorites. And remains
difficult also, yeah.
It was a really juicy one to work with for a month for me. Renunciation, letting go of the habitual behaviors, the thoughts and emotions that cause us and others to suffer. We forget they cause us to suffer as well as others. So that's renunciation, number 3. Number 4 is wisdom. Attaining clear comprehension and deep understanding and a purified open heart and mind through the mindful investigation of one's life. Isn't that interesting? That's wisdom. You know, we always think of wisdom as some big thing on out of our reach. But wisdom is actually something we're doing in this clear comprehension moment to moment. So you can see how that we wouldn't start with wisdom. We have to have a few things where we see, oh yes, wisdom. I'm wiser. I'm getting clearer now. I'm not, at this point. So the next one is courage, perseverance, and vigor in a mind that does not retreat from, but rather relishes difficulties. So that's one of my favorite. The Buddhist word for it is virya. So it's like going to war, being strong, being willing to press and do more. And so that's one of my favorites, a very active one. The sixth one is patience, which is very good to follow on courage. Patience is being tranquil and welcoming of things as they are. Welcoming, oh yes, I welcome of things as they are. Right? Not always feeling so welcome. Number 7, truthfulness. Seeing the world and speaking and acting in it with a mind and a heart unclouded by greed, hatred, or delusion. That's really truthfulness. By this time, we're in there. We know what we're doing. We can see things much more clearly. And this becomes a very deep one for a lot of people. A lot of people have a lot of great insights as we get in these last few. The number 8 is resoluteness. It's another one of my favorites. Carrying through on our deepest aspirations with tenacity and wisdom. Tenacity and wisdom, right? So resoluteness, definitely good, getting the juice going. Number 9 is loving kindness. No surprise. Relating to the best in others and ourselves, again, with an open heart, free from attachment or aversion. And the last one, kind of self-understood, is equanimity. Impartially embracing whatever arises with a non-reactive, compassionate heart and mind. All right. That is it.
Which one is the most difficult for you, and which one was the easiest for you?
The most difficult was renunciation because it came early on. And it felt like I was battling it all the time. I mean, I was in those days when I was working on this, I was still spending money. So it was hard to drive by the freeway at the end of a long day at work and not just go into a store and see what they had, that kind of thing. Now seems so long ago to me, but that was really a challenge. Or setting something for myself, like not having a drink after dinner, and then wanting one. So renunciation was the difficult one, and another one was patience. I move quickly, and I kind of wish everyone else did as well. Okay, so those are the two that I would say I had the most difficulty from immediately. And then, yes, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. And what did you say? Which one is the easiest for you? And then I'll tell you my experience if you like.
Yes, the easiest were I loved the courage, virya. That was my favorite. I just felt like I was going to battle as this, strong woman with all the tools I needed. I felt confident, and I just really was loving at this point. Courage is halfway through, and you will feel this. I'm sure that Amritat can confirm this. By that point, in our 5 months in, we're strong, we're seeing, we're clear, we're like, bring it on, you know? So again, as they're building in this ladder, you can see that courage is there, and it's smart courage. You can do it, you'll stretch yourself, you'll push, and the results are really incredibly wonderful. So I would say that's one of my favorites. And then loving kindness. I love doing even unknown acts of loving kindness, spreading it around. That was one I had a lot of fun with.
Wow. Yes, yes, yes. You know, I got into the course. I'm like you. When I hear something, I'll jump at it right away. And I think there was I forget how I was introduced to it. I was following a broadcast from the New York Institute programming, and they did a program with you and Joseph, where you were basically recruiting people to join in this 10-month course, 11-month course. And I immediately signed up for it, but I really didn't know what I was getting into. And going through these different principles with a guide like you, it's hard to explain, but you know, you can read these, and I urge people don't need to have a course. If they just took the book and then concentrated for a week, a month. I think you said in some of the Buddhist countries, they'll take one of these principles and work on it for just a year. But with your guidance, and the book was you actually doing the course with Joseph being your teacher. So we'll get into that in a moment, about who Joseph is, because his brilliant way of expressing is all throughout the book. But for me, the two that were the easiest, so to speak, easiest meaning as you go deeper, none of them are easy, because you always see where you are doing it and not doing it, so to speak, where you're on target or not on target. But generosity and loving kindness, to me, I like to think they're the low-hanging fruit in a way. They're more to our own experience. But for me, it started with generosity. I don't know how many of you have passed by people who are asking for money, but I was one of those people who never would give to them. You know, I didn't think it would help them. I didn't know, whatever the mind would say, I didn't do it. But with generosity, one of the directions in the book is just do it. And so I started getting wads of dollar bills now when I walk around the city, and anybody that asks or doesn't ask, I give it to. And then the question, as is put into the book, it's not just the giving that's important, it's your motivation for giving. I mean, yes, it's important for the person to receive it, but am I doing it for me? Am I doing it for them? And sometimes I'm too busy, I don't give. And so now I have to work with, well, why didn't I? And then generosity went even deeper in terms of being generous with ourselves, being generous with other people in speech and action. I don't want to take over the talk, but my goodness, it was so enlightening for me to work with generosity, and it will never go away. It's something that's permanent now in my life. And then loving kindness was, we do meditation sometimes where we're concentrating and sending love out into the world, and that seemed to me a little bit artificial. But when I started working with loving kindness, I found that I was constantly not giving it out to the world, that I was judging almost constantly. Anyone in front of me, I judged, and I made up stories about them. And when I looked at it from this point of view of loving kindness, I was much more open to accepting whoever was in front of me with whatever they were or had. Not all, I mean, obviously, many times not. It's always a process of working with and not working with it. And then the final thing I want to say, there was also the idea of loving kindness toward ourselves. And one of the most beautiful things about this study that you took us through, and that Joseph took you through, was everything finally there's so many ways that we are not not content with ourselves, right? And now you say this is the beginning. The whole idea about living a life of integrity is we usually realize our own faults, our own weaknesses, our own insufficiencies, and we beat ourselves up. And so maybe you could talk a little bit more about the bliss of blamelessness, because that came also through the loving kindness talk. So can you talk a little more about the bliss of blamelessness, because that is so important to as a result that comes from doing this type of work with yourself?
Sure. The bliss of blamelessness starts and just continues to fill us with joy when we've done the right thing. And we've all experienced it in pieces, bits and pieces, that when we've done it. And so we know that it feels that way. But like, to give an example, I live in San Francisco, and I take the ferry to work as many times as I can. And so then I'm walking through not the best part of San Francisco to get to my offices. And we have a lot of homeless people. And so I used to dodge them. I used to see them ahead and take another street. I did, it just, and it would, unbeknownst to me, I wasn't really clear about why I was doing that, but part of it was because it really troubled me. We feel badly seeing that on our streets. And then as I started this work, I struggled with it for a little while, and then I said, okay, I went to the bank and got a bunch of dollar bills, as people know who've read the book, and I just started, if they asked, I gave them a dollar bill, and I went from queasy, avoiding, all of that, to just do it, Gail, just try it. And within a very short amount of time, I was looking forward to that every morning. And I got to know some of them, and I would, smile, and sometimes they'd just look at me like, I had given them $1 million or something. There was all different kinds of things that would happen. But it was it was something I could do, and it was part of that generosity. And it was so obvious that from that point on, which is, I'm sure, why whoever put these together 2,600 years ago, realized that this is one you can see, and we all know. And so that feeling of being generous is tremendously uplifting. And from there, so much else happens. My generosity right now, I was telling you that I've fallen into this really generous space where I'm starting to give money in ways and amounts that I have never done before. And I feel wonderful about it. I just feel fine. I feel everything's okay. And it's what's just naturally arising in me now. And it's a beautiful part of this work. It just keeps going. So that's hopefully a good example of that.
Was Joseph a difficult taskmaster? Because actually he guided you every month. I think you met at the beginning of the month, and then you had a midweek talk, and then you met again at the end of the month to try to solve it. And before that, I can see that some of our audience has some questions. So please, if you have any questions you'd like to ask Gail about your own path or about the path of Buddhism, please do write us in the chat your questions. But can you talk a little bit about Joseph? Because he's, for those that don't know who Joseph Goldstein is, he's one of the founders of Insight, what's called Insight Meditation in America. He is co-founder of the Insight Meditation Institute. And this whole way of looking at Buddhism and being interpreted into the Western mind, we now call mindfulness. And It's always been called mindfulness, but it's sort of becoming very, very important in America. And Joseph was really one of the 2 or 3 people who brought it here and continues to translate it into our Western vocabulary. So maybe you could talk a little bit about working with Joseph, because as a teacher, because so many people are questioning whether they need a teacher in life, or how to find a true teacher. Tell us about Joseph.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was, incredibly fortunate to just stumble into that relationship. But sorry. But Joseph walks the talk. I mean, from that first day that I met him, and the way that he was so lighthearted and held himself as just, oh, isn't that funny? Look at my getting, riled up by the food, I'm like, gosh, I so don't think about myself that way, nor others. And that is what he brings from, 50 years probably of doing this work. And just with, stellar serious, seeing, stellar heart open, lots of, this has been what he's done, and to see that, and to see the lightness and the laughter and the joy and the incredible generosity that he has, and wisdom, you look at that and you say, I want that. Tell me what to do. I want that. And so that's really why I reached out to him when I was having trouble. And that's how the book came about, because I, made it easy. He just told me what to do, and I would come back and report, and he, give me all the answers, and then give me the instructions for the next month. And it worked, and we were having a great time. So it is, and it's, hundreds of years old. So that was the beginning. And Joseph is someone that is enlightened. He'd probably laugh if he heard me say that, but surely and truly he is. He is, and yet he is fun to be around. We could go places and people wouldn't know he was a famous teacher or Buddhist. He's very kind and present and fun and free, and laughs at himself. It still surprises me. So,
what are his qualities that make you feel his enlightenment qualities?
What was the first?
What are the qualities that you feel he has that makes you feel that he is an enlightened being?
I would say kind of mostly what I was just saying, that he is ultra present, so that you can just almost feel his heart and his mind present, and with things where you know what it's like to talk to somebody who's not present. Most of us go around with a lot of that a lot of the time in that way. So I think that is part of we all have that wisdom inside, and he is such a great example in moment to moment, day to day life of how you live that. I mean, and you only have to spend some time with him. Even on retreat, you'll see it if you go on to one of his retreats.
And you definitely get that from reading this book. I mean,
yes.
You've included so many quotes from him in here, and in fact, the whole dialogue would be, you could study these principles, but without having that direction of him, and then your reactions, because it wasn't just him; it was also you brought out from your own experience things that brought him out. So it was
Yeah.
very interesting
Yeah.
back and forth. I just want to read one comment that you picked out from him. He says, often we're discouraged by the enormity of a task or the length of a journey and become impatient with the difficulties we face. We lose faith in ourselves. Patience reminds us that what is in front of us is just this moment, just this step, just this breath. Patience, the Buddha said, leads to nirvana or enlightenment.
Yeah. One of the things that I found most profound about the teachings also, which ties into what you just said, is that, and I concentrate on that a lot in the book, of when people would ask me questions, especially in the course that you just completed, I would remind them, as I remind myself, we just begin again. And that freedom you feel in Joseph, he makes a mistake, and you can see him begin again. That's over. What's next? We're like, la, la, think about why did I do that? La, la, what are they going to think? You can just like be the victim of wayward thinking. And what he so clearly demonstrates is what you're picking up is that freedom, that bliss of blamelessness. He doesn't blame himself. If there's something that's come up and he's, stumbled, it's over, it's done, it's behind, it's old news, and that manner of being in the world, being in your life, being moment to moment with people, of the understanding you can just begin again, is so valuable. I wanted to mention this, and at some point, and so this feels like a good time to say it. Before I did the course that you were in, the book had been out for a few months, but it was the pandemic. It came out in the first month of the pandemic. And so people who were buying it and reading it were people who knew me. So my friends, a lot of my real estate colleagues, neighbors, family, were all buying the book. And a curious thing happened with a lot of them. And that was that they started to read it and they're like, they get into the first parami of generosity and they like, this is really good. And they start talking about it. And next thing you know, they have two other friends that say, well, we'll get the book. Let's get the book. Let's, do this together. And so there was this just this unplanned coming together of several people to go through the book, just as I had done it with Joseph, month by month, each one not reading ahead, and then sharing their insights with each other. And it's happened for a lot of people on their own. And that's where we, came up with the course, and why I suggested that we do it. And I think that is, just is a great demonstration of how these ancient teachings work in our everyday life with that magical idea of just beginning again. And when we're taking it into our daily life every day, that's really what we're doing, right? We forget we begin again. We forget we begin again because we're in our daily life. We're not sitting on our cushion. And so over some time, and you may speak to this, over some time, you just become, your auto response is, okay, let that go, just begin again, right? I think
Exactly.
it's one of
Yeah.
the most important things we learn in this. And because it's in our daily life rather than a half-hour sit that we do in the morning, but we're up against it all the time, we have to keep letting go. Oh, begin again.
What do we begin again?
What?
What do we begin again?
Being present. Being present right now, not, oh my God, dragging along, why did I just say that? Okay, I just said it. It's over. Let's begin again.
So just coming back to the awareness of the moment.
Yes.
In fact, our audience can do that now with us.
That's right. If in this moment right now you're thinking, I could never do that, I don't understand, I'll do it when I'm feeling better, all those things, try just in this moment, close your eyes, try in this moment, take a breath, even imagine that thought. Now there's nothing to tap into, so maybe that thought just floats on by. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's still there, but maybe it's a little softer. And then you have the thought, I could just begin again. Or now I begin again. Or, oh, yes, begin.
I found patience to be one of the very difficult ones of the paramita to do, because it's one thing to, when you're in a line, and I realize that it's given in your book as instruction that one of the reasons we're impatient is because we're constantly wanting something different than what is actually happening. We're always wanting to be up at the front of the line. We have something else to do. We are if we're impatient with ourselves because we messed up somewhere, because we have some idea in our mind and our habits that we're always projecting something else. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how we can deal with patience, because it comes up every day, every minute, practically.
Well, patience is a tough one for, I think, most people. And so I think there's an understanding about that, a little bit of a support. Sometimes if you find yourself really caught up in being impatient and you're with somebody, you could even say, wow, I'm just feeling so impatient right now. And even if it's directed at them, they'll have that thought, oh yeah, impatience, that's a really lousy feeling, right? We can all agree. So I find that just by acknowledging it, first it helps it dissipate some, just because I don't have as much interest in it as I once did. I have much less impatience now, much less. Or it still comes up, but it leaves so much more quickly and easily just with my noting, oh, impatience, kind of lighthearted. But I also found a while back that just acknowledging it to myself, and then even as I felt lighter about it, acknowledging it to whomever I might be having a difficult conversation with or something, that they would go, oh, it could break it. It's like, there's like unified over about how yucky that feels, impatience. Oh yeah, we've all been there. We stood in that line. We've got, they told us it would be, but it's not. And, so that's, I feel like it's one that is a good one to work with. And because each month we're working with the one, that month you're going to have a lot of impatience come up, right? Did you find that experience for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. And then the begin again, you just begin again. When you're impatient, how would you describe that act? What would you do when you're feeling impatient?
Yeah, again, I think it gets easier. In the beginning, you say, okay, impatience, and you go, that's right, you're damn right. I'm impatient, and I have a right to be, right? But after a while, it doesn't feel that way anymore. And so if you're checking in, you're like, okay, the worst of it's past. I'm still impatient, but I'm not trying to take someone's head off, or so what I think is that with impatience, as you work with it that month, you make big strides in just being able to accept it, see it, accept it, sigh over it, and become familiar with it. And, you can feel impatience in your body, and it doesn't feel good in your body. So all those are kind of ways that as we work with it, it alone for a whole month, we become a lot wiser. We can feel it starting to come up. That's where I am now. I can feel impatience start to come up. It kind of comes up my back, kind of. And I can just take a few deep breaths, and it goes away. It doesn't turn into, wild and crazy, ruling everything impatience. It's just, oh, yeah, I am impatient. But, nothing's going to change on that right now. So it goes away.
It's always scratching, but it scratches a little less hard when you realize that there's nothing I can do about it, and that my reaction to it is my doing, not because of the outside circumstances.
Mm-hmm. And also your reaction is not doing anything to help with its ease.
So again, I want to remind our audience that we have a great chance to pick Gail's mind here. You can ask a question about generosity or virtue or renunciation, wisdom, energy, courage, patience, truthfulness, resoluteness, loving kindness, equanimity, or anything else. But I'd like to read something from your book, which I found very, very inspiring to me, because we talk about being conscious, but how does that help the world, my own individual consciousness? And you say here in the conclusion, actually, of your book, the world desperately needs our skillful, compassionate voices, perhaps now more than ever. There's a hunger worldwide, the affluent hunger for meaning and contentment, continually reaching out for more, but never satisfying the hungry ghost inside. We need to have moment-to-moment awareness in order to see clearly the truthfulness of things as they actually are in the moment, in our speech, in our action, and in our hearts. So how can working with the paramis help bring this about?
Well, let's see. I think that it's kind of a combination of what we've touched on as we've spoken so far. One is just being aware that there are components of our integrity. Right? I think that integrity, people, they admire people with integrity, most people. There are a few that don't, but most people. We know when we're not acting by our integrity and feel lousy. But we don't know how to get better at it. That's what I, would say over and over again when people would say, what's the name of your book? Integrity. Oh, I could use it. It's sad to see. That's almost a universal response. Oh, I could do better, So we know that. And it's part of why the bliss of blamelessness is the finish line here in this work, is because we feel lousy when we don't. And when we start improving our integrity, it's tremendously uplifting. It's huge. And it happens we know that feeling when we're generous, as I said, and that's why they start the paramis there. But imagine that with all of them as you're working with them in your daily life. So you have lots of opportunities. It's not like you go on retreat and it's over. It's in your face all the time. I used to have a little piece of paper that I had with the instructions, and I'd put it on my dash if I was driving. I'd have it in my purse, or so if I'm standing in line, I can pull it out and look at it and just remind myself all month what I'm working with. And so that part of it sounds like it's not as important as it is, but the fact that it's always in front of you, with you all the time, that integrity work is part of that getting to that bliss of blamelessness. It's something in everyday life that you do all the time, and you're catching yourself. And the beautiful thing is, you probably remember in our course together, as we got near the end, the difference in what people were sharing, they weren't even asking questions anymore. They were just wanting to share these experiences they were having. And you could see the bliss of blamelessness, right, on their faces as they spoke.
Definitely.
And because they've done that work, and they know how, they know when they're on track, they know when they're off track, they catch it, they get themselves back. And it's not because they're trying to be virtuous as much as they're trying to be happier. It really is, just as generosity, you can be generous, you help them, they're happy, and you feel great. So all the paramis are structured that way. They're all those pieces of ourselves where we beat up ourselves. And slowly we learn, by doing, seeing it, and and some of these things that we find are way down deep, like things from childhood. You go, where did I get that? Oh my gosh, my dad told me that, whatever it is, And so we kind of clear out this rubble. And we begin to just like come out of the forest, like this, and we're seeing more, and we're seeing more and seeing more. And then at some point, I would say maybe 2/3 through the process, we're there. And we've got all those things we've worked so hard on in our, back pocket. And now we're with the ones that are a little more delicate, a little more fine-tuned, but we can do it. We're on it. We're right there. We see it. And, and so can't remember exactly what you asked me now. It's like it's so into describing it, but
you speak about the paramis as being like a ladder, and the last one is equanimity. And so perhaps we can sort of conclude sort of the study of these principles with, if you can tell us a little bit about equanimity as being sort of the blossoming of everything else that leads up to it.
That sounds like what it is. Yes. It is. It's that ability to be equanimous. And again, the part that so many of us overlook, equanimous with ourselves, right? We're so hard on ourselves. And when one is equanimous with oneself, having seen being equanimous with another person, the light goes on. It's, I'm not such a bad person after all, I screwed up there. Yeah, but look, and that feeling alone is that you feel equanimity. You just feel this quiet, at ease, this real deep ease of everything's okay. And also that a great trust in yourself. You can trust by the time, like I was saying, halfway to the 3/4 of the way through, you trust yourself. At least you may not always do what you would hope to would be your response, but it came up and you didn't do it. And then afterwards you're like, oh, I don't need to do that again. I don't need to say that again. I don't, so it's so close. It's like, but the profound difference of getting up to equanimity, where you can have that same equanimous response for yourself as well as others, is I think, a really big piece, at least in our culture. And so learning to be equanimous for others in some ways is not as difficult as learning to shine that same light of equanimity on ourselves. And from that, of course, comes the bliss of blamelessness. and living in the world with integrity and kindness.
Yeah, that's very fruitful. Thank you. Thank you again. We have a couple questions. Actually, I see this question is from Omar. Isn't the entirety of generosity really about our attitude about service, which is known as seva, I believe, in the ancient words? Can you speak to that?
Can you say that again?
The generosity really is aligned with our attitude towards serving others.
Of course, yes, it is indeed, and I like to think I kind of mentioned this in another spectrum, but I kind of think that the Buddhists who put this together were wise, because we all are generous at certain times in our lives, and we've experienced that that feeling of generosity. And so it's a place where, by starting there and being successful, seeing yourself being that and being generous, that is what then gives you, I think, a great deal of the interest and impetus and belief in yourself to move forward with this practice, because you know that that first piece is enlightenment, that generosity for oneself and others, and that the beauty that comes from that in person and in our own thoughts and emotions is such a great beginning, and people understand that enough that they trust, well, okay, I'll go from there on these others that I'm not so sure about. So
great. Yeah, well, it's been fruitful spending all this time with you. I hope our guests will explore the book. And what action can you suggest to our viewers as their next step toward their own awakening?
Oh, well, I would say buy the book.
Yes.
And see if and read up through the first parami. And if you're feeling like it might be fun to take this adventure together with a couple people, get them to buy the book and read up to that point. And then do it. Even in this large course that we just completed, we broke up in the middle of the month into small groups of 2 or 3. And in the beginning, when we first started, I don't know if you remember this, but we said we were going to break people up into the groups, and a lot of people said, no, I don't want to break up into groups, and by near the end, or the 3/4 away, at least through the course, everybody was in groups. So some people that said they didn't want to be in the beginning, they would hear people talk about what it was like with their group that they met with mid-month, and so they would reach out to our tech guy the next course and say, can you set me up with and that just kept happening. So I think that this work is really great to do as with others, because as you open up and share some of your insights, first of all, it keeps you on track for the month, knowing that you're going to have to report. Secondly, as you listen to the others share, there's a whole bunch of new other ideas or thoughts or ways you could be or were or didn't notice, etc. And so
definitely the group helps. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that was what the book, you could see that happening with Joseph and I, because I would ask him a question, and he'd laugh and he'd say, gosh, I don't know. Or he'd tell me a funny story about when he did this or that. And then a teaching would come out of it for me. So that conversation about it is so valuable. It's really valuable. And we will be doing another course at NYI, but I don't have a date yet from them. So New York Insight, you can find them online and let them know that you are interested in the next course. And they'll keep put you in that next group.
I really hope you'll do it, Gail, because just reading it and working with yourself is one thing, but sort of like having an assignment every week, every month in this case, and each one of these words, they may seem like a simple concept, but as you bring it out in each chapter of the book, because of Joseph's perspicacious way of seeing things, it opens up all sorts of types of new insights to our own mind, to our own spirit, to our own being. So, thank you, Gail. It's been so memorable for me spending this time together. We'll have your meditation in a moment, but I just wanted to remind our audience that these wisdom talks are now going to be put on our website and on YouTube and Facebook, so you can please share this with your friends. Send out a little message to them where they can see it. They can always go to our website at sunseed.org/wisdom talks, in plural, wisdom talks. And while you're there, please visit our guru shop, because we have wonderful merchandise like this beautiful cape I'm wearing. We now have a new alpaca collection, which we're just ready to launch. Beautiful clothing from all around the world with craftsmen that we're helping, and also your purchases help us to keep this platform alive. And as I said to you, please contribute or give what Buddhists call dana in any amount you like. There's a link down below. You can click on that, or if you're watching on some other platform, you can go to our website, sunseed.org/wisdom talks, and your donations will really help us to be able to keep these free conversations going. And one final word. We have an exciting announcement coming up in just a few weeks. We're going to have a jamboree, a wild festival day with all sorts of great speakers and luminaries of our world today, to help us kick off the crowdfunding for our next sequel movie to Sunseed. We have the title. It's going to be called Sunflower. And this is going to go into the thought leaders of today, just as Sunseed, the journey, looked at the thought leaders back in 1970, people that brought in many different aspects to religious and spiritual thought. We're expanding that now to bringing in some of the brilliant women who are out there, people that are interested in many aspects of saving our planet and equality for humanity, as well as deepening our inner and spiritual life. So get ready. We're going to be getting ready to launch our crowdfunding. We hope that you'll join our mailing list and be ready for that. So I'm going to turn it over back to you again, Gail, so that you can lead us in another beautiful meditation. And thank you so much for all your giving. And really, I urge everyone, get the book. It is work that you can do every day.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I loved having you in the courses. I know I've told you. And Amritat was particularly great with questions. And we devoted a lot of time for people to share and ask questions. And as I was saying, he would start with a question, and then at the end, he was sharing some incredible insights and changes he was making in his life. And I think you did help to really inspire other people to share in the same way. And it just became this wonderful sea of love and sharing great ideas in the last few months of the course. So, and to see people open up like that was truly remarkable. So thank you for this, for the invitation, and for the work that you do. I'm just very pleased our paths have crossed as they have. So thank you. Okay, so let's just take a quick one, some time to settle into ourselves again. The purpose maybe to be able to hold on to some of the wisdom that we've seen and heard today, and but knowing that we will be able to watch it again. And for me, it's a sigh of relief. Every talk I do always goes great, but I never know that in the beginning, so I watch that as right now I'm saying, see, Gail, you went fine. All right. So now I'd like to just send you off with a few phrases that I use. I changed them, of course, over the years. And so right now, these are the ones that I use. And I'll say one, and then I'll pause, and you can say it again, as will I, to yourself, quietly. And then I'll let it just kind of sink in with another breath, and then I'll say the next one. All right. So start with a few moments of breathing with integrity, with intention, feeling and seeing the breath. May we all be safe from inner and outer harm.
May we all be safe from inner and outer harm.
May we all be peaceful, happy, and contented.
May we all be peaceful, happy, and contented.
May we all be healthy and strong of body and mind.
May we all be healthy and strong.
And may we live with abundance and ease. May all beings everywhere be healthy and strong of body and mind. May all beings everywhere be peaceful, happy, and contented. May all beings be peaceful, happy, and contented. And may all beings live with abundance and ease. Thank you all for your time, for your dedication, for your generosity, and for your love. Namaste.